Thank you. Good morning. My name's Councillor Sam Forsyth and I'll be chairing this hearing of Subcommittee C of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Before we begin, could I ask you all please to mute your microphones for the moment in order to improve the sound quality whilst I outline the procedure. In addition, can I invite everybody, with the exception of committee members, unless they're speaking, to turn off your cameras. This is to improve the broadband width. Thank you. Committee members will have their cameras switched on throughout the hearing. Could everybody who's attending the meeting today please make sure that your mobile telephone and any other mobile devices are on silent? And can you ensure that you're in a private and convenient place which is free from any distractions or any unnecessary noise, for example, televisions or radios? Thank you. I'm speaking quite slowly and hopefully clearly so everybody can follow, and as you can appreciate, notes will be taken as well. It is vitally important, for what I hope are obvious reasons, that those attending this meeting and making representations are able to hear me and members of my subcommittee and the officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meetings. Can I remind everybody, and I confirm, that this is a public meeting and it is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. Members of the press may record and take photographs except where there are confidential or exempt items. Can I remind members, please, that they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business that is to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary financial interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any such declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. I take it that there are no such declarations. Thank you. Apologies to this meeting were submitted on behalf of Councillor Cooner, and Councillor Iqbal is the nominated substitute member. Can we please confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting that was held on the 13th of July of this year at 11 AM? I can see nods of agreement. Can I take that as being agreed? Thank you. Can we also confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of July of this year at 10 o'clock? Again, I see agreement to that. Thank you. Can I welcome you all to this hearing for an application in respect of the House of Bad Apple Hare, which is situated at 8 Cannon Street, Birmingham, B2 5EP. Let me begin with some introduction so you know who everybody is. As I've said, my name is Councillor Sam Forsyth and I will chair this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. Together with me are two other members of this subcommittee, Councillor Penny Wagg and Councillor Zafar Iqbal. In addition, present in this meeting are the following officers: the Licensing Manager, David Kennedy. Good morning, Mr. Kennedy.
Good morning, Chair.
The Committee Manager, Katie Townsend.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. And the Committee Lawyer, Joanne Swampali. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair.
Thank you. Could I ask all parties to identify themselves, please? Firstly, the applicant, Mr. Mills, Gavin Mills.
Hello.
Thank
I'm
you.
Bob Mills, Managing Director of Bad Apple, the House of Bad Apple.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Secondly, those making representations, Mr. Lord, John Lord.
Hello, Chair. Hi, my name's John Lord. I'm a resident of Newton Chambers and a director of the Newton Chambers Management Company.
And could I also ask Ian Hyde? Mr. Hyde, could you introduce yourself, please?
Good morning. I'm Ian Hyde. I'm resident of Newton Chambers.
Good morning. Could I ask if any person making representations wishes to withdraw their representations at this stage of the hearing?
No, Chair.
No. Thank you.
No.
Thank you. You'll just bear with me for a moment. I have a slight technical problem. You'll just bear with me for a moment. I'm just going to mute my microphone for a moment. May I apologise for that. I will assume that all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee's procedural rules sent out with the notice of today's hearing. Please note that given the nature of today's hearing, I may at my discretion amend those procedural rules to reflect the fact that this meeting is taking place online. It is nevertheless an important meeting, regardless of the fact that this is taking place online. But I wish to assure you that any such amendments will not impact on any party's right to a fair hearing. We will be using the chat function in the Microsoft Teams to communicate. In your toolbar situated hopefully at the top of your device or laptop, you will see a speech bubble and underneath it has the word chat. Please click onto that bubble to go into chat. If you don't have that facility, please use the raise a hand function to indicate you wish to speak. Could I invite you all now just to confirm that you have access to that chat function by just typing in your name in the chat bar, please.
That's everyone, Chair.
Thank you for that. We will use the chat bar to communicate during this hearing. Please keep that chat column open for the duration of the meeting so you can follow any messages that are posted in the chat. I don't believe that anyone has dialed in this morning by telephone. I can see everybody. If at any stage you have a technical problem, like I just did, if you can just indicate in the chat function, please, if at any stage you cannot hear clearly or you cannot see the person that is speaking. Thank you. Does anyone wish to raise any preliminary points at this stage? If you do, please indicate that you wish to do that by typing speak into the chat function. No, thank you. I'm now going to briefly outline the procedure that we're going to follow for today's hearing. Firstly, I will invite the licensing officer to present the report. Then I will invite Mr. Mills, the applicant, to present his case. I'm asking, please, if that could be kept to approximately 20 minutes or so. Can I remind everybody, please, to speak as slowly and as clearly as they can, and please be mindful that notes are being taken and we are being live streamed on the council's website. When it is somebody else's turn to speak, please mute your microphone and use the chat function. Members of the committee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but we will try and limit those questions to the end of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted unless the members consider it appropriate. Committee members know where they wish to ask questions. Please do so in the chat function and alert myself or the meeting manager to do that. Could I also indicate occasionally it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice. I may at my discretion invite all parties to wait in the meeting whilst members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice within a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We will then come back to the meeting and continue. At the end of the hearing, I will invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. And can I please stress that no decision has or will be taken until all the evidence has been heard in this particular hearing. At the decision-making stage, the members and the relevant officers will withdraw from the meeting to determine this decision, and we will go into a separate meeting to do that. We will make our decision within that separate meeting, and people will be notified of that decision within 5 working days. I hope that is all reasonably straightforward for everybody. With that, could I ask, please, that Mr. Narinder, the licensing officer, please present the report, please. Mr. Kennedy? Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
The House of Bad Apple Hair Limited applied on the 14th of July 2022 for the grant of a premises licence for the House of Bad Apple Hair, 8 Cannon Street, Birmingham B2 5EP. The purpose of the report before the committee today is to consider the representations that have been made in respect of the application, which seeks to permit the sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises to operate from 11 AM until 11 PM Monday to Sunday, premises to remain open to the public 8 AM until 11 PM Monday to Sunday. The representations received are attached at appendices 1 to 9. The application is attached at appendix 10. A condition has been agreed with West Midlands Police and the applicant, which is attached at appendix 11. Site location plans are attached at appendix 12. The person whose representation is at appendix 3 submitted a subsequent clarification email, which is published at page 61 of the agenda pack. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council's statement of licensing policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under section 182 of the Act. The licensing authority is also required to take such steps as it considers appropriate to promote the 4 licensing objectives. The options available to the committee today are to grant the application in accordance with the application, to reject the application, to grant the licence subject to conditions modified to such an extent as considered appropriate, exclude from the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates, and or to refuse to specify the nominated designated premises supervisor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Could I invite Mr. Mills? Would you like to make your representations now, please? Could I remind you, we're asking people can keep their representations to approximately 20 minutes or so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the premises operates as a hair salon and has 3 areas: the hair salon, a beauty room, and a co-working space where clients who have their hair done at the premises can also come in and work from the space before and after their appointments. That we also have a bar in the salon, which is available to clients when they are having their hair appointments to have a drink, if it's a glass of wine or a Diet Coke or a coffee, anything that they feel required that they want. If it's a celebration, we operate from 10 a.m. on Tuesday to Saturday, and we close on a Tuesday and Wednesday at 6 p.m. and we close on a Thursday, Friday at 8 p.m. and on a Saturday we close at 5 p.m. We do not operate till 11 o'clock at night, and we do not operate 7 days a week. We are a hair salon that is offering clients a drink. The trend has come very heavily from London, as hair salons now need to offer a lot more than just a basic hair salon service. It's an experience, something some people can come in and enjoy themselves from start to finish with friends and family. We are no way at all looking to operate as a bar. We will never have this as a bar. Our clients are here to have a drink in between their service while they're waiting. Occasionally we might do a hairdressing event, like where we might invite some clients to have a blow dry and offer a glass of wine. But this is not a bar.
Forgive me, Mr. Mills, I don't mean to cut across you at all, but we're having there's a radio or some music I can hear that's coming through. I don't know where that's coming from.
Unfortunately, across the road, there are some works being done.
We'll live with it. Thank you.
We invited the residents down. I think one of the residents came down to have a look at the premises. We reassured them that we're not looking to open it as a bar. That's not our primary care of this business. The police have been here. We made that clear. The conditions of the license was just to be able to serve alcohol to our customers and guests if they were waiting. Occasionally L'Oreal will come in and do seminars here, and there might be Prosecco here, but we'll never open later than 8 p.m. I think the person who just did the licensing application for us just did extended hours. All the tenants we want to have a really good relationship with. We hope they can come and use the space. We're doing some very innovative within the area. We employ over 25 people here at the moment, and it's a very, very, very busy place. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Is there anything else you wish to add at this particular stage?
No, not really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I now see that members have questions. I'm going to go to Councillor Iqbal first of all, please. Councillor Iqbal, you're on mute at the moment.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm trying to. Thank you. So, Mr. Mills, what do you mean by guests? So, if I came to your hair salon and had a haircut, could I bring my 20 mates with me?
No, you could bring your wife, or you could bring your partner if she wanted to wait for you, or whoever you wanted to bring. But you couldn't bring 10 friends or 1 friend or 2 friends just to have a drink and it is a hair salon for a client. But if you have someone waiting, they can sit and have a coffee. They could sit over a glass of wine. They could bring their mum, their dad. They could bring their friend. But it's not a place where people are coming to party or drink. It's a hair salon.
Okay. So I couldn't, and the other question, sorry, Chair, is that, for the rents, say if I book my hair appointment with yourself, and because you're asking to be a rents venue, couldn't I bring my 20 mates then? Just have a party?
No.
No?
No. This is a hair, you would have to be, for an event, we would do a blow drying event or a how-to hairstyle event, and it would be for clients only, and it would be it'd be in the day for a start. It would never be on the evening. Our staff don't work past 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. But we are not open as a club or a bar. It is a hair salon for clients.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Could I, before I turn to any other members, could I just ask everybody to confirm they could hear Mr. Mills? If you could just type into the chat function. I know Mr. Mills had some outside interference, but it's important that everybody heard what he had to say. Thank you. Mr. Mills, could I ask you these questions, please?
Yes.
This morning, I'm sitting in the council house doing this hearing in the city centre, and I walked down Cannon Street on my way here because it's quite close to the council house. And as I walked past the premises, the first thing that struck me was there is a large bar in the premises. And I also noticed advertising for an event space. Could you indicate what your primary business is and what you intend your primary business to be?
A hair salon.
And in terms of, you've mentioned offering refreshment to clientele, and you've also talked about events. In terms of offering refreshment beverages to clientele, is there a limit at all? Say if I booked an appointment, how many people could I bring with me? Is there a limited number to that, or is it how many I feel like?
We have 27 hair stations here. We would never let any more than 5 people within the premises, purely because of space. And also, if you were coming here to have your hair done, you as a client doesn't want to have a crowd of people in here when you're spending anything between £100 to £250 on a hair appointment. You want to have an enjoyable space. So again, this is not a bar. This is a hair salon that offers facilities to have a drink or to bring your mom or your dad or your partner to enjoy the space while you're having your hair done.
And when people book their appointment, do you say to them at the time of booking you can bring somebody, or do you just let them decide for themselves?
They decide that on themselves.
And you mentioned events, for example, you mentioned L'Oreal, and you do maybe hair events.
Yes.
Is it envisaged you do any other non-hair related events at the premises?
No.
And in terms of hair related events, how many in a year would you envisage?
6.
And you gave 2 times. You indicated you said at first never open later than 8 p.m. and then you said in the day 6 to 8 p.m. What time do those events normally conclude?
Most of the time. So one of the events will be a hair competition where they'll be doing models and stuff. So it will probably be on the days we close, either on a Monday or Sunday in the day between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m.
So that would be, you said Sunday and Monday, 11 till 5.
We open the other days for clients.
Thank you. I have no other questions. I'm just going to ask Councillor Wagg if she has any questions.
Councillor Wagner, you're on mute.
Right. All my questions have been asked. Thank you.
Oh, forgive me, Mr. Mills, let me just ask one further question. You talked about engaging with residents. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the engagement that you've done with the local community and the residents that are nearby?
Yeah, so we had a few of the residents come down, not in the best of manner, but I tried to approach them to come into the premises, have a look, welcome them in, tell them that this is a space for them if they want to have the hair done and stuff like that. And we really take consideration of the people living upstairs. We're working with the local colleges. We're looking to take on 15 apprentices in this building to encourage hairdressing. As a company, we have anywhere between 25 to 30 apprenticeships across the Midlands anyway, because we have 7 more salons across the West Midlands. We'll be doing local charitable events in the building as well, and a lot of support for the community.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mills.
Thank you.
Could I turn now to those people who are making representations to make their representations now, please. Mr. Lloyd, if you'd like to begin. Again, could I ask you approximately 20 minutes or so?
Thank you very much, Chair. It's actually John Lord, not Lloyd.
Forgive me.
That's all right, don't worry. Most people get that wrong. Thanks very much for giving us the opportunity to talk to the committee. I really do appreciate that. So a bit of background. So my name's John Lord. I've lived in Newton Chambers for 18 years, having purchased my apartment in 2004. I'm also one of the 3 directors of the Newton Chambers Management Company. I am speaking on their behalf, attending here. Bit of background about Newton Chambers. So Newton Chambers is a Grade 2 listed building. It's also known as Caxton Gate Phase 2, formerly Solicitors' Chambers above retail units, which was converted into residential apartments in about 2000. There are 23 apartments in total, separated from the current 6 ground floor retail units by stock rooms. And then 3 of these units have, including Bad Apple, used the first floor for sales. So there is no separation in the Bad Apple unit between...
Mr. Lord, please forgive me. Could I just ask you to slow down a little bit?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I do
People
talk quite fast sometimes, Chair.
If you could just slow down a little bit, that would be much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Going back to the 6 retail units on the floor, of which one of them is Bad Apple, 3 of these are use the first floor for sales. So directly above Bad Apple's first floor, there are residential apartments. Newton Chambers is very special, and its construction is very special. And the conversion basically results in noise spreading throughout the building and outside the building in a very bizarre way sometimes. And this is exacerbated by our large single glazed windows in the apartments. Due to the listing, we weren't able to have double glazing, so we all have very beautiful large sash bay windows. If you've walked down Cannon Street, you would have noticed this on the building. It is one of the most beautiful buildings, I think, in the city centre. I'm very biased, obviously, because I live there. We have always maintained, and it's been accepted by the different freehold owners, that in recognition of these issues about protecting our amenity as residents, and we want to make sure that there is a successful retail businesses operate on the ground floor. We have worked very closely with retail units, and we've had a good, happy environment. That when a proposal for a change of use or a new operator comes in, it's always been a focus on low impactful retail, i.e. clothes shops, shoe shops, and household shops, as opposed to bars, restaurants, or anything that creates additional noise or upset. And that reflects the nature of the building because of its conversion and because of the restrictions that have been placed on Newton Chambers and the building through its listing. And that's worked quite well. And to date, the noise from the units, the retail units, are relatively contained due to their use. So, for example, in terms of clothes shops, people go in small numbers, don't they? You may go on your own, you may go with a partner or your family, and usually it's staggered. So you go in, you go out, another person goes in, come out. And the operating hours have always been usually 10 till 6. So the impact has been relatively low on the residential units. However, there have been previous complaints relating to music and walking on the hard floors in the Bad Apple unit when it was previously Jigsaw. So any amplified music, which is played in the background, can be heard in the apartments above due to the poor insulation and due to the issues that I've spoken about previously due to the nature of the building. And also the issue we also have as residents is deliveries. Since there have been a number of change of uses to the units on Temple Street, which back onto Needless Alley, some of the bars there now use Needless Alley for deliveries, and we have deliveries and refuse collection in the early hours of the morning. And you can imagine how noisy that is, lots of empty bottles that get piled into delivery and dust carts at 3 o'clock in the morning. If you speak to the local councillors, they are fully aware of our issues, Councillor Ball and Councillor Hartley. So again, these are concerns that we have already. We were informed of the change of the former Jigsaw unit to Bad Apple by the freehold agents. I think it's fair to say, as directors and residents, we welcome this in principle, as it represented a continuity of a low impact for retail use. We were aware of Bad Apple, we were aware of how hairdressers operate in the main. Thought that's going to be okay, that's going to be quite good. However, at no point we were informed of any licensing element. And we only found out when the public notice was displayed. I happened to walk past one evening and saw the blue notice, which came as a bit of a surprise, as you can imagine. So we've not heard anything from the applicant or from the freeholder either. On questioning this with the freeholder's agent, we were informed in an email that it was only to give clients a glass of Prosecco while they were waiting, which sounds quite reasonable, doesn't it? We don't have a problem with that in principle, but we still don't understand why it had to be until 11 o'clock at night, which didn't suit the opening hours of the hairdressers, as Mr. Mills has explained. Our request to meet the freeholder, not Mr. Mills, was ignored, and it was only on the day of the opening, when we saw the extent of the bar operations, that we start on the associated descriptions, that made us realise that we have potentially an issue here and we needed to object. Having seen pictures of the bar, and I take my hat off to Mr. Mills, the installation and the high level of the installation is brilliant. If this was a bar, which I do still think it probably could be, it would be a very high-end bar that I would be very happy to drink in. The bar is very permanent. It has an amazing range of drinks. It's not just Prosecco or coffee and beer. It had a staffed person staffing the beer when we went in. And as you mentioned, the sign on the outside said bar, events, hairdresser, salon. And again, this is replicated in the Instagram account by Bad Apple Hair. So you can see from our concerns that the installation of the bar with that extent of bar operations and the description of the usage that takes place, we are concerned that this is beyond the use of a hairdresser and could easily turn into a bar and event space with associated impacts on us residents. I noted the issues or questions and the responses about numbers of people. My concern is, how would that be enforced? Mr. Mills confirmed that they're not taking details when people book, and talking to people, noticing my hair, I don't go to these type of hairdressers, I don't have any hair. However, talking to people who do, and well, not this type of hairdresser, talking to people who do go to high-end hairdressers like Bad Apple Hair, they talk about it being a complete experience, particularly focusing on hen do's, proms, and people going to very corporate formal events. So that would mean necessarily there would be a group of people attending, and I think that's what my concern is, that how would this be enforced? And the same for events. Mr. Mills talks about hair-related events, but again, how would that be enforced to if there were events that weren't necessarily related to hair? So quite quickly, that unit could fill up with a lot of people drinking, waiting around for treatments and hairdressers and hairdressing, creating the associated noise up to, as the licensing request is, 11 o'clock at night. So again, by default, it starts to change from the primarily use of as a hairdresser to become a bar and event space. I think in terms of we are therefore I think to summarise, for those reasons, that means that we have strongly objected in principle to the licensing application. I think to stress that this is more than a hairdresser's. This is becoming a bar operation, an event space which is directly below residential apartments with associated noise impacts. And moreover, this is very difficult or impossible to enforce and to actually limit the number of people attending and also what actually goes on in the unit. And I think Mr. Mills has confirmed that in his presentation. We also have the issues of people will be congregating outside, obviously to smoke potentially as they wait for their clients, having a drink, accessing, leaving the premises up to 11 o'clock at night. If the licensing was approved, there's nothing to stop that happening. And we all know that the 11 o'clock licensing means that people leave up to midnight. We've witnessed how the recent number of bars on Temple Street have created noise and antisocial behaviour for residents. I don't know if any of you have walked up Temple Street at 11 or 12 o'clock at night, or even 8 o'clock at night at the weekends. You can see the sheer amount of people who had far too much to drink, lying in the road, creating noise and disturbance for the residents who actually live on Temple Street. We want to avoid that happening on Cannon Street. We've seen what happened. We want to avoid that happen. I think granting a licence would allow a bar use by default, and it would be unenforceable. And moreover, it will set a precedent for not just Newton Chambers, but also for the remaining units on Cannon Street as well. Restricting sales to clients and event attendees, as I said before, would not be enforceable. And therefore, on this basis and the impact on residents, we request that this licence application is refused. And just before I finish, I have to say there was no prior engagement with residents. I'm afraid, Mr. Mills. We weren't invited down. Some of the residents actually came down on your opening day because they were so concerned about what they saw. There wasn't any proactive engagement, which I think is a pity, and there hasn't been any engagement since we made our representations. Previously, where we've had issues with licensing applications, more lately with the London Cocktail Club on Temple Street, which backs onto the side in front of our property, they met us on site and we negotiated some licensing conditions. So I'm afraid we'll make that quite clear. We've had no engagement with the applicant, which I think is disappointing.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Could I remind Mr. Mills that he'll have an opportunity to make further representations at the end? Could I now ask Mr. Hyde, please, to make his presentation? Again, Mr. Hyde, could I ask you to keep it to about 20 minutes or so, please?
Of course, Chair. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and hello, committee. I've lived at home in Newton Chambers for 7 years. During that time, I've engaged fully with BIS, with councillors, with the police, and with the City Council to support and improve the core city centre. It's a fantastic place to live, and we should all be proud of how the city is booming again after the Commonwealth Games and getting people back into town. We all love living here, and we all want to see a dynamic city centre that caters for visitors, customers and residents alike. Our building is listed, and we cannot have double glazing fitted. Behind me is the scale of our windows. They are large, they're beautiful, as Mr. Lord said, and they're single glazed, as you might have heard from the noise that was coming into Mr. Mills's location within the building because of works outside. Recently, I worked, as Mr. Lord mentioned, who also worked with them, with licensing and planning, about a ground floor space in the neighbouring building, the brick building just across the way from us here, which was Needless Alley behind me, regarding the cocktail club. As a result of this, the owner of the cocktail club, their agent, was in touch, along with Councillor Hartley and other concerned neighbours. We met them on site. We came to an agreement, so we didn't have to oppose their licence at this committee. The House of Bad Apple are actually within our building, not our neighbouring buildings, within our building. And they made no attempt to meet me or engage with me as a resident or our directors. So I was unable to give my view ahead of this committee meeting. I, therefore, am objecting to this licence on the basis of in effect, a bar and event space operating beneath where my home is, with no engagement, as well as noise impact of uses meeting outside the premises, at times outside daytime use of hair cutting. I'm incredibly concerned and upset that by granting this license, it would mean it was impossible to restrict sales of alcohol just for salon clients while they have their hair cut. If their opening hours are between 5 and 8 p.m, then why do we need an 11 p.m. license for 7 days a week? This illustrates that the alcohol is separate to their core business, and therefore it becomes a bar and event space by default. I request that this license application is refused or rejected, which may be the correct term. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. I'm now going to ask members if they have any questions for Mr. Hyde and Mr. Lord before I give them an opportunity to sum up their presentation. I'm just going to look to the other members to see if they have any questions for either of those two gentlemen firstly.
No, Chair.
No, thank you. Mr. Lloyd? Mr. Lord, if I could go to you first. Is there anything else you'd wish to add to your presentation?
No, thank you, Councillor. No, thank you, Chair. I've covered everything I wanted to.
Thank you. Mr. Hyde, is there anything else that you would like to add at this stage?
There isn't. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. I'm now going to ask Mr. Mills. Mr. Mills, if you'd like to make any further submissions, any closing submissions?
Yes, just a few responses to Mr. Lord's points. We do take all client information, so on booking of any appointment, their first name, last name, telephone number and email address is taken. So no one can just walk in and just sit at the bar or have a hair appointment without giving us their details prior to their appointment. We've invested a lot of money into this building, and the furniture in here is 80% of the furniture in here is hair salon furniture, which is very expensive. We would not want this furniture to be destroyed or wrecked with people who are drunk or intoxicated with alcohol. Again, this place is purely used as a hair salon for hair salon clients and their guests. Regarding speaking, when the premises was looked at, we submitted plans, applications to the landlord and the landlord's agents to tell them that a bar would be fitted in here. And we had to supply 2Ds, 3Ds, M&E drawings, schedules of works which explained the usage, and 3D CAD drawings, and they saw it, they approved it. We spoke to the landlords of the residents of people who manage the building, and if I have to be totally honest, we didn't think it would be such a problem because we're not acting as a bar, we're acting as a hair salon with a multiple space for clients to enjoy themselves while they're here between the hours of 10 a.m. till 8 p.m, 3 days a week, and majority of the days we will be closing by 6 p.m. I'm sorry that the residents feel that there's been no engagement at all. They're welcome to come down here anytime they want. Welcome to use the services as a hair salon. Of course, it's very important to us. We have a lovely building. We respect the building. This is why we wanted to come here, because how beautiful the building is. We don't want people hanging outside. We have clients from the age of 18 all the way up to 90 come here. And we don't want anyone to feel that they're in a venue which isn't a hair salon. But as industries and businesses have to adapt and change, clients want to see that they're in something now that is spectacular, amazing, and something they can post on the internet, Instagram, and that's what we've tried to do, create a space that people can be proud of to be here, as well as the community. We don't at all intend to operate anything but a hair salon, and we don't intend to operate 7 days a week till 11 p.m. So that's not our case at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mills. And can I thank everybody who's attended this meeting this morning and participated in this meeting for giving us your submissions and your representations. What we will do now is myself and the other committee members, we will retire and go in to private session, and we will inform you of our decision within 5 working days. But I'd like to thank all of you for coming this morning. Thank you
Thank you.
very much, and I wish you a very pleasant rest of the day.
Thank you.